This isnâ for everyone. Only Archangel Michaelâ's chosen ones will understand this. If you see this, then you are chosen. Open now. This isnâ for everyone. Some messages are like quiet doors that only appear when the light hits them a certain way, doors that were always there but invisible until the moment you noticed them. Not because you were better or chosen in any literal sense, but because you happened to be listening when the room finally went silent enough to hear your own breath. If you see this, it does mean you were selected from a crowd. It means you paused long enough for something inside you to answer back. There has always been a tension between noise and knowing. The world is loud with instructions, demands, alarms, promises of urgency, promises of reward. It teaches you to move quickly, to define yourself by motion, by reaction, by how efficiently you can turn minutes into output. But underneath all of that is a slower current, one that does shout. It waits. It has patience measured in lifetimes rather than days. Some people pass through entire lives without ever dipping a hand into it, not because they are incapable, but because they were never told that stillness could be useful. The idea of being a ekasina is seductive because it offers relief from uncertainty. It wraps fear in meaning. It says your suffering wasn't random, your sensitivity wasn't a flaw, your restlessness wasn't aimless. In stories, an archangel appears with a sword of light, a name spoken like thunder, and suddenly everything makes sense. But the deeper truth hidden inside those myths is quieter and more uncomfortable. Nothing was handed to you. You arrived here carrying the same raw materials as everyone else: attention, doubt, longing, courage in small untested amounts. What differs is not selection, but willingness to look inward without guarantees. When people speak of Archangel Michael, they often speak of protection, of battle, of standing between chaos and the fragile human heart. Symbolically, Michael is the moment you decide not to abandon yourself. The sword is discernment. The shield is boundaries. The battle is not against demons in the sky, but against the slow erosion of your own clarity. Every time you choose honesty over convenience, presence over distraction, responsibility over fantasy, you enact that ancient image without ever needing wings or fire. If you are reading this and feel a strange recognition, it is not a sign that you are set apart from others. It is a sign that a part of you is tired of pretending not to know what you already know. You have felt it before in flashes. The sense that your life is asking something specific of you, not grand or cinematic, but precise. Maybe it was a moment when you could have spoken and didn't, and later wished you had. Maybe it was a choice you made that felt heavier than it should have, as if it echoed beyond the moment itself. Those echoes are not destiny calling, they are conscience waking up. Expansion does not happen all at once. Despite the dramatic language often used to describe awakening, it is rarely explosive. More often, it feels like discomfort. Old narratives begin to itch. Roles that once fit start to feel tight around the shoulders. You notice how often you perform rather than participate, how frequently you outsource your authority to trends, leaders, algorithms, or inherited beliefs. This noticing is not glamorous. It does make you special. It makes you responsible. The danger in believing you are among a chosen onisa is that it can become another way to avoid the work. If you are chosen, then you wait. If you are chosen, then confirmation must arrive from outside. If you are chosen, then doubt is an enemy rather than a tool. But real inner growth does not remove doubt, it refines it. It teaches you how to question without collapsing, how to hold uncertainty without rushing to decorate it with symbols that feel comforting. Open now, the invitation says. But what is opening? It is not a gate in the sky, no shimmering portal etched in starlight where choirs of ethereal beings descend with scrolls of destiny. Nor is it a thunderclap of revelation, splitting the heavens to pour forth golden light upon your brow. No, the opening I whisper is subtler, more intimate, a loosening of the grip you have on the version of yourself that needed to be certain, needed to be exceptional, needed to be reassured that everything was orchestrated by some vast, benevolent hand. Picture it, your fingers, clenched around the edges of a familiar map, finally uncurling. The ink fades not because the path vanishes, but because you step beyond its borders into fog-shrouded terrain where each footfall echoes your own heartbeat. Opening feels like vulnerability, yes, a tender exposing of the heart's underbelly, where the armor you forged in childhood's fires cracks and falls away. It feels like admitting you don't know what you redoing and choosing to act with integrity anyway, even as doubt coils like smoke in your chest. Imagine a woman named Elena, standing at the edge of her quiet kitchen at dawn. She spent years chasing signs, tarot spreads, synchronicities, dreams of winged figures promising purpose. One morning, the teacup slips from her hand, shatters on the tile. In that instant, no vision comes. No voice assures her it's all part of the plan. Instead, she kneels, gathers the shards, and weeps not for the loss, but for the realization that her life is hers to mend, piece by jagged piece. This is opening, stepping out of the story where you are watched and protected by unseen guardians, and into the reality where you must watch and protect what matters. The sky does not part, your eyes simply adjust to the dim light of your own ordinary power. Expansion is often mistaken for accumulation, more knowledge devoured from ancient texts, more signs plucked from the ether like fireflies, more confirmation sought in the nodding heads of fellow seekers, more spiritual language layered upon the tongue like ornate silk. But true expansion can also be subtraction, a holy emptying. It is letting go of the belief that pain must have cosmic justification, that every ache is a chisel from the divine sculptor shaping you into marble perfection. Consider the man who lost his sight in a shadowed accident, not a punishment, not a test, just the brutal randomness of flesh-meeting world. He clung to narratives of karmic debt, begging the heavens for meaning. Until one day, in the velvet dark, he released the plea. No lightning bolt of insight followed, only the simple act of navigating his home by memory and touch. Expansion arrived not in restored vision, but in the sharpened senses that remain, subtraction revealing what was always there. Letting go of the idea that someone else is keeping score, tallying your virtues against vices on celestial ledgers. No archangel with quill in hand scribes your worth, the scales balance within. And letting go of the fantasy that meaning arrives fully formed, a gift-wrapped epiphany rather than being shaped through repeated, imperfect choices, choices stained with regret, choices that scar and heal in turn. As these ideas fall away, what remains is simpler and harder to romanticize: attention, like a lantern held steady in storm; care, the quiet mending of frayed bonds; and effort, the daily grind that forges soul from clay. Mystically, this subtraction mirrors the alchemist's crucible, where base metals dissolve to yield gold, not more, but purer. Psychologically, it dismantles the ego's fortress, brick by illusory brick, until the self stands naked, trembling, alive. There is a moment many people reach, whether they describe it in religious terms or psychological ones, where they realize no external authority is coming to rescue them from themselves. For some, it dawns in the hush of a cathedral, incense curling like unanswered prayers; for others, in the sterile glare of a therapist's office, words unpacking the tangled roots of childhood wounds. This realization can feel like grief, a keening wail for the child who believed in fairy tale saviors, the adult who bartered autonomy for the illusion of control. It can also feel like freedom, a sudden gust lifting the weight from your shoulders, leaving you weightless, directionless, gloriously adrift. Without a divine script dictating each step, you are left with the raw fact of agency. You can harm or heal, the tongue that lashes in anger, drawing blood from a loved one's spirit, or the hand extended in forgiveness, bridging chasms of misunderstanding. You can lie or tell the truth, whispering deceits to preserve a fragile peace, or voicing hard realities that shatter illusions but birth clarity. You can turn away or stay present, fleeing the bedside of the dying, or sitting vigil through the long night, bearing witness to their unraveling. These are not glamorous powers, bedecked in halos or heroic capes, but they are real threads of light woven into the fabric of every life. If I, Archangel Michael, exist in this story, I exist not as a towering figure clad in armor of sapphire flame, sword of flame to cleave demons from your path. I am the voice that asks you to stand upright when it would be easier to fold, knees buckling under despair's weight. I am the reminder that courage is not loud confidence, bellowed from mountaintops, but quiet follow-through, the decision to rise after betrayal, to speak when silence tempts, to labor unseen. I am the pressure you feel when you are about to betray your own values and hesitate just long enough to reconsider, that moment at the crossroads, deal half-struck, when conscience stirs like a wing beat against your ribs. In that sense, everyone encounters me, not just a few chosen by lottery of fate. The difference is not selection, but recognition, seeing the sword not as external steel, but as the spine you straighten within. Let me tell you of Javier, a father in a rain-slicked city, teetering on infidelity's edge. His lover's perfume lingered on his collar as he drove home, justifications swirling like exhaust fumes. Then, the pressure, a subtle tightening, as if invisible hands pressed his shoulders back. He pulled over, stared into the rearview mirror at eyes haunted by his children's trusting faces. No vision appeared, no flaming sword materialized. Yet he turned the key, drove home, confessed. Harm averted, not by spectacle, but by that hesitation, the angel's whisper. Mystically, I am the blue flame that guards the threshold between impulse and integrity, symbol of discernment amid chaos. Psychologically, I embody the superego refined, not tyrannical judge, but compassionate sentinel urging alignment with your deepest yes. Understanding does not arrive as a sudden download of secret knowledge, a cosmic zip file unzipping forbidden truths into your mind. It arrives as a series of small recognitions that rearrange how you move through the day, subtle shifts like tectonic plates grinding beneath the surface. You notice how you speak to people who can do nothing for you, the cashier with weary eyes, the stranger on the bus clutching a faded bag. Do your words lift or dismiss? You notice what you consume when no one is watching, the endless scroll of envy-fueled feeds, or the book that stirs dormant dreams. You notice whether your words match your actions when it costs you something, the promise to a friend kept despite exhaustion, the boundary held firm against a boss's demand. These are the tests that matter, though they never feel dramatic enough to be shared as revelations on social altars. No one posts, "Today I chose not to gossip," level up. Yet in these quiet crucibles, the soul tempers. Narratively, recall Sarah, the artist adrift in corporate chains. She noticed her sketches gathered dust while spreadsheets devoured her nights. One evening, alone with canvas and doubt, she painted anyway, not for likes, but for the ache in her fingers that demanded expression. No thunderous applause followed, only the steady rhythm of brush on cloth. That recognition rearranged her. Days later, she quit, stepped into uncertainty. Expansion, born of subtraction. So if you are here, reading, feeling that familiar tug of significancia like a hook in the solar plexus, pulling you toward some grander narrativia let it ground you rather than inflate you. Let it move you toward humility rather than separation, dissolving the mirage of chosen one into the truth of shared humanity. The world does not need more people who believe they are chosen, strutting stages of self-importance. It needs more people willing to choose responsibility, like the gardener tending soil without fanfare, compassion, the bridge builder amid tribal wars, and clarity, the light-piercing personal fog over the siren call of comfort. That choice is available to everyone, every day, without ceremony no incense, no incantations, just the next breath. Nothing mystical needs to happen next. No sign needs to appear in cloud formations or number sequences. The opening is already happening if you are willing to stay with the discomfort of not being special in the way myths promise with capes and crowns and cosmic spotlights but special only in the way every conscious being is, capable of awareness, that piercing gaze upon your own shadows, capable of harm, the sharp edge turned outward or inward, capable of care, the balm applied without expectation. Expansion, in the end, is not about becoming more than human, ascending to some ethereal plane beyond flesh's frailties. It is about finally consenting to be fully human, awake to the pulse of blood and veins, accountable for the ripples of every deed, and present in a world that desperately needs fewer fantasies spun from escapism and more integrity, the unyielding spine that holds when winds howl. Yet let us deepen this consent, for the path winds onward. Mystically, envision the opening as a lotus unfolding in midnight waters, petals parting not to reveal a jewel-encrusted core, but the still pond beneath the your reflection staring back, undistorted. The angel's light is not floodlamp brilliance but phosphorescence, glowing faintly to guide through inner nights. Psychologically, it confronts the orphan archetype, that primal wound crying for rescue. Integration comes not in reunion with a phantom parent god, but in self-parenting the stern yet loving voice that says, "You are enough, now act as such." Narratively, think of the elder by the fire, recounting not triumphs but turnings, the time she turned from vengeance after loss, choosing forgiveness as bitter herb, the night he silenced the critic in his head, picking up the pen despite trembling hands. Deeper still, opening unmasks the illusion of separation. You grip certainty because the void terrafisa the abyss where self dissolves into oneness, where I blurs into we. But vulnerability is the key turning in that lock. Feel it in the body, chest loosening, breath deepening, the ego's chatter fading to birdsong. Expansion subtracts the veils, the belief in scarcity, birthing generosity, the myth of isolation, fostering connection. No longer do you hoard signs like talismans, you become the sign, living emblem of possibility. Consider the collective narrative unfolding now, in this fragile era. Cities hum with disconnection, screens shielding eyes from flesh and blood encounters. Yet openings multiply, the neighbor knocking with soup for the ill, unprompted, the activist laying down megaphone for dialogue, the parent pausing scroll to truly see the child's drawing. These are my interventions not bolts from blue, but nudges toward uprightness. Everyone feels them, few name the source. Recognition dawns in hindsight, that was the angel, steadying my hand. Psychologically, this grief of no rescue evolves. First, denial, surely a miracle looms. Then anger, railing at indifferent skies. Bargaining, offerings of prayer or penance. Depression, the heavy cloak of agency. Acceptance, freedom's dawn, where you craft meaning from clay, not demand it preformed. Mystically, it echoes the dark night of the soul, St. John of the Cross's ascent through purging Flamisa Euro, not to escape humanity, but to embrace it aflame with purpose. An agency. It branches endlessly. In harm, the ripple, a lie unchecked festers into empires of deceit. In healing, the bloom, truth spoken ripples into revolutions of trust. Presence over flight, staying with grief transmutes it to wisdom. Narrate your own, recall the fork where you chose care over comfort. Euro, the friend nursed through breakdown, words measured though fury boiled. That was expansion, quiet as dawn. I, Michael, stand not apart but within, a quiet sentinel of consciousness, a presence neither removed nor aloof, yet entirely vigilant. I am the sword that severs illusion from truth, the flame that warms without consuming, a paradox both fierce and tender. Encounter me in the hush of hesitation. Euro's grace, in the persistence of follow-through. Euro's grit, where choices are weighed, not by the applause of the world, but by the subtle tremors they leave in the soul. Life is a series of these moments, tests presented with no fanfare. Speak kindly to the powerless, even when your own power is small. Curate the intake of your mind, your eyes, your ears, with discernment. Align word with deed even when the cost is personal, unseen, or inconvenient. These acts, repeated quietly, forged the fully human soul, tempered not by grand gestures but by persistent integrity. The tug you feel. Euro, the subtle, insistent pull. Euro, is not an accident. Let it root you in humility. It is not weakness, it is the recognition that each moment carries a responsibility that cannot be outsourced, ignored, or postponed. Choose responsibility daily, not for acclaim, not for the external markers of success, but because the task itself is unglamorous yet vital. Compassion emerges here, seeing the self in the other, not as a passing reflection, but as a shared pulse of being. Clarity emerges as well, the capacity to pierce delusions without cruelty, to confront what is, while holding the space for what might become. No ritual is required. No ceremony needs to be staged. Consent, awareness, and attentiveness suffice. These simple acts, practiced consistently, shape a consciousness attuned to truth. Yet the path of expansion spirals beyond immediate ethical action. Mystically, it unveils the inner Merkaba wheels. Euro, the chariots of light that spin not in space, but in dimensions of consciousness. These wheels carry the seeker through inner realms where time dissolves, where identity thins to reveal the connective threads binding all life. Psychologically, expansion calls for the integration of shadow. Rage, fear, greed, envy, and despair are not exiles to be banished but teachers to be welcomed. They speak in a language of raw honesty, revealing the hidden structures of the mind and heart. To embrace them is to reclaim fragments of oneself lost in denial, fragments that, once reintegrated, increase both capacity and clarity. The narrative of life itself unfolds in intertwined stories. Observe the widow who, in the quiet devastation of loss, mothers the orphaned, her grief alchemized into sustenance for another. Observe the dreamer who builds a vision, brick by sweat-earned brick, not from entitlement but from discipline, perseverance, and fidelity to inner truth. Each life, when seen through this lens, becomes a crucible, a narrative vessel where trials and choices shape the emerging human soul. Opening, then, is not a static event but a continuous process. Euro, a euro to discomfort, to subtraction, to shedding what no longer serves, revealing essence. To be fully human is to be aware of the miracle of breath, accountable in action, and present amid chaos, not merely surviving but awake to the intricacies of living. The world hungers for this consciousness, for beings who do not cling to chosen myths, but who choose integrity, each decision a brushstroke in the grand painting of moral and spiritual maturity. Within this consent, pain loses its cosmic demand. Meaning does not descend from heaven, nor is it handed down from authority. It emerges from the iterative choices of the individual, the conscious and repeated engagement with life. Agency, once recognized and exercised, glimmers with possibility. Harmony's shadow yields to the light of healing, violence to understanding, neglect to care. I whisper, stand. Stand in the full awareness of what it means to choose, even when standing demands sacrifice. Courage does not arrive as a sudden eruption. It follows through, emerging in the quiet constancy of uprightness, in the willingness to align with truth even when unseen or uncelebrated. Recognition, when it comes, rearranges the internal architecture of perception. Humility roots the effort, ensuring that no victory becomes vanity, that no step forward inflates the ego unduly. Choose now. The present demands nothing less. Deeper still lies the lotus heart. Vulnerability resides here, often mistaken for weakness, but it is the crucible of untold strength. To allow oneself to feel, to encounter grief, love, longing, and despair without flinching, is to access reserves of courage previously unimagined. Subtraction, the conscious letting go of what is extraneous pride, attachment, resentment reveals abundance in its purest form. Grief, fully faced and honored, transmutes into freedom. Tests, far from being punitive, act as tempering forces. They strengthen resolve, illuminate character, and reveal capacities previously latent. Consent, awareness, and intentional action awaken the soul, drawing it into alignment with Lithi's deeper rhythms. The invitation endures, eternal and patient. Open now, not to more acquisitions, more knowledge, more spectacle, but to all that is, the full spectrum of human experience. The symphony of life contains dissonance and harmony, suffering and joy, the mundane and the transcendent. Within it, angelic undertones harmonize with the rawness of human struggle, creating a resonance that is both universal and intimate. To participate fully is to embrace the totality, to recognize that each gesture, however small, contributes to the unfolding whole. This is not passive acceptance, but active engagement, the conscious choreography of presence, attention, and response. The Solar's awakening is iterative, often imperceptible, yet profoundly transformative. Moments of clarity, glimpses of understanding, and sudden insights interweave with periods of confusion and darkness, forming a tapestry rich with texture. To walk this path is to recognize that every choice matters, every action resonates, every thought shapes reality. The mundane, attended with mindfulness, becomes sacred. The painful, embraced with courage, becomes teaching. The ordinary, observed with compassion, becomes a portal to extraordinary awareness. Fully human, then, is fully awake, fully present, fully responsible. Responsibility itself is a teacher, unglamorous yet inexorably powerful. It manifests not in heroic feats, but in the quiet attentions, tending to the small and overlooked, speaking truth in the face of indifference, offering care without expectation. In this, the self expands, not by accumulating power or prestige, but by deepening empathy, by cultivating discernment, by fostering trust between inner knowledge and outer action. Each day, each decision, is an opportunity to align closer with the principles of integrity, courage, and awareness. The subtle practice of aligning thought, word, and deed transforms ordinary life into sacred engagement. Through this process, the soul learns the paradox of strength in vulnerability, of abundance in subtraction, of liberation in grief, and of freedom in discipline. Lithi's challenges are neither obstacles nor punishments they are opportunities for refinement, for integration, for deepening understanding. Shadow and light coexist, and the task is not to eradicate one in favor of the other, but to witness, integrate, and allow both to inform action. To deny shadow is to limit perception. To embrace it with conscious awareness is to expand capacity. Love, compassion, clarity, courage, and responsibility are not abstract ideals, they are active forces, measurable in the effects of action upon others and upon self. To live fully is to engage with these forces moment by moment, choice by choice. The fully human soul is not an endpoint but a process. A continuous becoming, a dynamic interplay of inner awareness and outer manifestation, a dance between the finite and the infinite, the personal and the collective. Each step taken consciously magnifies resonance, deepening understanding, enlarging capacity, and aligning being with truth. Ultimately, the human journey is a call to presence. To breathe, to act, to see, to respond with integrity. This is the essence of awakening. Within each moment, the possibility exists for transformation, for courage, for clarity, for compassion. The Merkaba wheel spins silently within, carrying the seeker through realms beyond ordinary perception, yet these are not distant realities. They are woven into the fabric of daily life, accessible through attention, intention, and consent. Inner and outer worlds converge in the practice of fully human living. In this space, choice reigns supreme. The individual, awake to the interplay of action and consequence, shapes reality through conscious engagement. Pain, when faced with awareness, loses tyranny, joy, when encountered with gratitude, deepens. Suffering, approached with courage, becomes teacher, delight, received without clinging, becomes grace. The fully human soul is a participant, not a spectator. A creator, not merely a consumer. Integrity, presence, and accountability become natural states, not burdens or performances. And so I, Michael, remain within, not separate, a reminder and a guide, a witness to the ongoing unfolding of consciousness. Stand, then. Embrace responsibility. Practice compassion. Pursue clarity. Face shadow without fear. Align action with word. Allow vulnerability to reveal strength. Let grief transmute into freedom. Let subtraction reveal abundance. Consent, repeatedly, in each moment. This is the path to the fully human life, the life in which the ordinary is sacred, the personal is universal, and the finite resonates with the infinite. In this dance of choice, presence, and awareness, the human symphony plays each note, each silence, each breath contributing to the eternal song. Listen. Participate. Stand. Be fully human.